Hey everyone, this is Michael again, and welcome to the Smackdown and AEW Rampage review. Smackdown tonight was from the SAP Center in San Jose, California, while AEW Rampage was taped from the Liacouras, I think that's how you pronounce it, the Liacouras Center in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And Smackdown tonight, I thought it was an okay show. Wasn't great by any means. But tonight on SmackDown, we kicked off the King of the Ring tournament and the Queen's Crown tournament, which WWE has already fucked up, which I'll get to explain that. But tonight, we had two King of the Ring qualifying matches and two Queen's Crown tournament qualifying matches. But overall, SmackDown was an okay show tonight. So, I'm going to start off the review right now. Going to do SmackDown, and then, of course, AEW Rampage. So, SmackDown opened up tonight with the contract signing for the triple threat match for the SmackDown Women's Championship at Crown Jewel. So, Bianca Belair ended up making her way out. Both Adam Pearce and Sonya Deville were in the ring. There was a table in there, of course, for the contract sign-in. Sasha Banks was shown standing on top of the announce table. And Adam Pearce ended up saying that we're here to make the triple threat match for the SmackDown Women's Championship official for Crown Jewel. So Sonya Deville ended up showing, what happened last week with Sasha Banks beating Bianca Belair because Becky Lynch ended up assisting that, which gave Sasha the win. Sonya Deville then introduced Becky Lynch. So Becky Lynch ended up coming out. Myra Cole ended up showing us how Becky Lynch ended up stopping Bianca from beating Charlotte this past Monday on Raw. And which, of course, at the end of the match, she was then attacked by Sasha. So we saw that. So Becky Lynch then ended up sitting down at her own table, which her table was set up on the entranceway. And she ended up saying, San Jose loves me. So Becky ended up taunting Sasha and Bianca. Becky ended up warning that there will be some payback. So Sasha ended up asking if Becky Lynch missed her, because she knows that the fans did. So Sasha ended up taunting for her spotlight being bigger, ended up taunting them for her spotlight being bigger, and Bianca ended up interrupting. She ended up saying that the only conversation we should be having is Sasha signing the contract. So Bianca ended up going on. She ended up saying that Becky wasn't prepared at SummerSlam, and that she just got lucky by beating her. So Bianca ended up challenging both Sasha Banks and Becky Lynch to get in the ring. Both Becky and Sasha didn't get in the ring. They weren't moving. So Bianca was seated in the ring. She started tossing stuff out of the ring. Becky Lynch ended up bringing up how she defeated Bianca in 26 seconds to win the SmackDown Women's Championship, at SummerSlam. So she ended up tipping her table over Becky. So after she tipped her table over, she ended up marching into the ring. So we had Sasha end up attacking Bianca from behind, and both Becky and Sasha end up double teaming on Bianca. Becky ended up taking Bianca down, and Sasha started unloading on Becky with some kicks, and Becky ended up turning it around. Bianca then ended up grabbing Becky from behind, started unloading on her, and then Bianca scooped both Becky and Sasha up to deliver a KOD, a double KOD. So Sasha ended up sliding out of it. Bianca ended up kicking Sasha onto the table. So she then ended up putting both Becky and Sasha through the table. So Bianca ended up putting Becky on top of Sasha, and they both went through the table, with the double KOD from Bianca. So Bianca started dancing around the ring, spinning her hair around, and that was how the segment ended. But overall, this was just a okay open to SmackDown tonight. So then we saw the Mysterios backstage, Ray and Dominic. They were with Kayla Braxton. Kayla Braxton ended up asking both of them what it would mean to win King of the Ring. Ray ended up telling Kayla Braxton that other than being Universal Champion, being King of the Ring is the next best thing. So Ray ended up saying also to Kayla Braxton that it would make him sick if Sami Zayn became king, if he won the King of the Ring tournament. So Dominic then ended up telling his father that he's going to stay in the back and watch the match. So then Ray ended up making his way out. And we had Rey Mysterio versus Sami Zayn. This was the first round match in the King of the Ring tournament. And this was a very good match right here. This was an entertaining match between the both of them. So we had Sami Zayn end up approaching Dominic backstage. This was after SmackDown came back from the commercial. Sami ended up saying that while Ray is a great man, it's time for Dominic to be his own man. And he ended up saying that if he asks Sami, he thinks Dominic is better than his father. So Sami Zayn ended up walking off, and he headed to the ring. The bell ended up ringing, and Sami ended up going for the haluva kick early, and Ray moved out of the way. So Ray ended up nailing a awesome Hurricanrana, which sent Sami Zayn across the ring. Sami Zayn came back on Ray and delivered a sit-down powerbomb, which he went for the cover. Ray ended up kicking out at 2. So we had Sami Zayn was delivering some rights to Ray. Ray ended up countering and dropping Sami for a 619, but Sami ended up rolling out to the floor. Ray then ran the ropes. He ended up leaping over the top, and he ended up taking Sami down with a nice, awesome Hurricanrana, which got the fans popping for that spot there. Nice Hurricanrana that was done on Ray to Sami Zayn. So Ray then went to the top, delivered a splash in the middle of the ring on Sami Zayn. He went for the cover, which Sami ended up kicking out too. So Ray kept control of the match. He was mounting Sami in the corner with some right hands. Sami ended up countering, and he ended up sliding Ray across the mat, and he went shoulder first into the ring post. So Ray then ended up falling out on the floor. Dominic was shown coming walking down the ramp, and then SmackDown went to commercial. Then when SmackDown came back from the commercial, Ray was fighting Sami off from the corner. Sami then ended up launching Ray into the turnbuckles with an exploder suplex. He then went for the haluva kick, but Ray ended up taking Sami Zayn down with the Hurricanrana, which he went for the cover. Sami ended up kicking out at 2. There's a point where Sami ended up going up to the top. Ray ended up climbing up, and they delivered a springboard Hurricanrana. So Ray ended up going for another pin, which Sami ended up kicking out at 2. Ray ended up blocking the Blue Thunder Bomb from Sami, and he still ended up sending Sami into position for the 619. Sami then dodged the 619, hit the Blue Thunder Bomb on Ray. So he went for the cover, and Ray ended up kicking out, just in time. So Sami was showing some frustration here at this point in the match. So Sami ended up taking Ray to the top. Dominic ended up getting on the apron to fix the turnbuckle pad because the turnbuckle was exposed. So Ray ended up taking advantage of the distraction, and he ended up nailing the senton on Sami Zayn. So Ray ended up going over to tell Dominic, oh, stop messing with the turnbuckle cover. And because of that, Sami Zayn ended up taking advantage of the distraction, and he ended up rolling Ray up for the win. And there you go. Sami Zayn ended up winning the match. He now advances to the second round of the King of the Ring tournament. Post-match, we had Sami Zayn end up celebrating, and he went over to the stage to celebrate with the throne, the cape, and the crown. But I want to go over the participants in the King of the Ring tournament. So we had Rey Mysterio versus Sami Zayn. Of course, Sami Zayn won the match. We had Cesaro versus Finn Balor, which took place later on in the night. And this Monday on Raw, we're going to see Kofi Kingston versus Jinder Mahal. Honestly, why is Jinder Mahal in this tournament? Why? And then we are going to see Xavier Woods versus Ricochet. Xavier Woods, he always wanted to be in the King of the Ring tournament. He's like, oh yeah, put me in the King of the Ring. I'm the next King of the Ring. So, there he is. He got his wish. He's in the tournament. So, but Xavier Woods and Ricochet, it could go either way. But who I would like to see win the King of the Ring, Ricochet is deserving to win the tournament. I think if Ricochet wins the King of the Ring, it could benefit for him. WWE should build him up and get him out of that terrible, terrible slump that he was in when he was on Monday Night Raw. Now they got drafted to SmackDown. It's time to start focusing and building Ricochet. Give him a nice push. The tournament will benefit him if he wins it. But what can I say? This is WWE. They could easily fuck it up. But Ricochet is the one who I like to see win the tournament. I wouldn't mind if Sami Zayn won, or if Balor won, or Xavier Woods. But my pick to win the tournament, Ricochet. I think Ricochet is fully deserving to win the tournament. So that's my pick. I'm going with Ricochet. Then we saw a little vignette for Hit Row. And, they got drafted to SmackDown from NXT. So they're going to be debuting soon on SmackDown. And then we saw a video package from last week where Seth Rollins ended up visiting Edge's home. So we saw that. And then we saw Kayla Braxton. She was backstage with Seth Rollins. Kayla Braxton ended up asking Rollins if he thinks that he crossed the line and visiting Edge's house last week. Rollins ended up saying, oh, that is the narrative. But let's review the facts. He pointed out how Edge has mocked, ridiculed, embarrassed, and humiliated him, and how he still managed to beat Edge after SummerSlam. So Rollins was like, he's called a monster and demonized, but that's fine. So Rollins ended up saying that for the past few weeks, he's still been the bigger man, challenging Edge to figure out once and for all who's the bigger man. But we heard nothing from Edge. Rollins then wanted to say that he told Edge that he was going to his house, and he did what he said to get an answer to his challenge. So he ended up saying now he hasn't crossed any lines, and more importantly, he still hasn't received an answer to his challenge. So Rollins ended up saying that he doesn't even know why he's talking to Kayla about this, and that she has no power to do anything about it. So Rollins then excuses himself, and he say that he has to go find someone who does have the power. So that was that. More continuation of Rollins and Edge. This feud ain't over. But I have to say, Rollins and Edge is the best thing going on WWE television. The best thing going on SmackDown, aside from Roman Reigns. So then we had the first round match in the Queen's Crown Tournament. Zelina Vega versus Toni Storm. My God. What a horrible fucking match this was. This match went 1 minute. 1 minute. And with that, with the match going 1 minute, you already know what WWE thinks of this tournament. Better yet, let me get to when I talk about Liv Morgan versus Carmella. So we had Zelina Vega end up coming out, and then Toni Storm then made her way out. We had a pre-recorded promo from Toni Storm saying that after she wins the Queen's Crown Tournament, she will rule WWE. With the boldness of Joan Jett, the tenacity of Bruce Springsteen, and the epicness of Madonna. So Toni Storm ended up mentioning how she will be crowned the Queen of Rock. So then the match started. Toni Storm ended up catching a kick from Zelina Vega. She ended up stomping on Zelina Vega's foot. Zelina Vega came up and nailed a death press on Toni Storm. Started delivering some right hands. Zelina Vega was grounding away on Toni Storm. So Toni Storm ended up getting up. She started a little with some left and rights on Zelina Vega. Toni Storm delivered a atomic drop and then a running clothesline on Zelina Vega. So Toni Storm ended up delivering a running hip attack in the corner to Zelina Vega. Toni Storm ended up going up to the top. Zelina Vega ended up going up to the top rope, and Zelina Vega ended up slamming Toni Storm down to the mat by her hair. So we had Toni Storm end up going for a backslide, but Zelina Vega ended up reversing it and turning it into a code red. And there you go. Zelina Vega ended up winning the match, and she is now moving into the second round of this Queen's Crown Tournament. Awful. Absolutely awful. How do you have Toni Storm lose this match? If you were to give Toni Storm the win and she moves on to the final, imagine if Toni Storm won the Queen's Crown. That would benefit Toni Storm, because WWE would build a new star in Toni Storm. But no, they don't want to do that. They want to give a win to Zelina Vega, a woman who has lost few matches since she came back to WWE. They give it to her. I don't understand. I don't understand why you had to have Zelina Vega win the match. Yet Toni Storm should have been the one to win it. Unbelievable. And at this point, when Zelina Vega won the match, I'm like, nope, I don't give a shit now who wins this Queen's Crown Tournament. I don't. Fuck this Queen's Crown Tournament. Look at the participants they have in this Queen's Crown Tournament. And every match in this tournament is a rematch. Toni Storm, Zelina Vega, what we saw tonight, rematch. We also had Liv Morgan, Carmella, that we saw tonight, rematch. How many fucking times do we have to see Liv Morgan and Carmella? And then Monday Night on Raw, we're going to see Doudrop versus Natalya. Yeah, let me go take my bathroom break during that match. And then Dana Brooke versus Shayna Baszler. Another fucking rematch. Can you tell how excited I am for this Queen's Crown tournament? Awful. I do not give a shit about this tournament. I don't even care who wins. Give it to Shayna Baszler. That's my pick to win the tournament. It's going to be Shayna Baszler. Thank God they didn't have Charlotte in this, because if they had Charlotte in it, which I said, oh, watch, they put Charlotte in here and Charlotte wins the tournament. Thank God WWE actually did something right and not put Charlotte in the tournament. But I don't give a shit about this Queen's Crown tournament. Give it to Shayna Baszler. And then we had the Bloodline. Roman Reigns, the Usos, Paul Heyman, they end up coming out. Reigns got on the mic, and he had given a shout out to San Jose. And he ordered San Jose to acknowledge him. Reigns ended up saying that Paul Heyman had one job to do on Monday Night Raw. And that was to make sure that his cousins, of course the Usos, stayed on Smackdown in the draft. And Paul Heyman ended up doing that. When the Usos were announced that they were staying on SmackDown, it cut backstage to them and Paul Heyman there, and Paul Heyman took a sigh of relief that the Usos are staying on SmackDown. So Paul Heyman ended up telling San Jose to acknowledge Roman. So Reigns then ended up embracing Paul Heyman. Reigns ended up going on to say that he loves Paul Heyman, and that Paul Heyman loves him also, his tribal chief. Reigns ended up saying that the Usos also love Paul Heyman, and that Paul Heyman ends up loving the Usos. Reigns ended up saying that Paul Heyman is the wise man to the Bloodline, and that he needs Paul Heyman to be wise and come clean. So the fans were chanting Suplex City. You know, they were waiting for Brock Lesnar to come out, which of course Lesnar wasn't here tonight. So Reigns ended up saying, silly San Jose, Suplex City doesn't exist because this is the island of relevancy. So Reigns wanted Paul Heyman to admit that he's responsible for Brock Lesnar's free agency. Paul Heyman ended up saying that he's in a terrible position because no matter what he says, it will sound like he's spinning things. Paul Heyman ended up saying that he's been with Reigns' family for 40 years. Reigns stared Paul Heyman down. Paul Heyman ended up saying that Reigns chose him. He rescued him and saved him to be his consul because he knew Paul Heyman is a wise man. Paul Heyman ended up saying that he has been accused of many things and is guilty of even more. And that he's never been accused of being stupid and pulling the trigger now on a scheme to dethrone the tribal chief. And that would be stupid. So Paul Heyman was ranting. He ended up saying that only a stupid man would do that. And Reigns would never choose a stupid man to be his consul. So Paul Heyman ended up saying that Lesnar can't stand the fact that at Crown Jewel, the Conqueror will be conquered by Roman Reigns. That's what Paul Heyman says. You know, he has the Roman Reigns. So we had Reigns ended up saying that he doesn't want Paul Heyman to tell him. He wants Paul Heyman to look into the camera and tell Brock. Reigns ended up saying, don't worry. He'll protect Paul Heyman because he can. So Paul Heyman then ended up addressing Lesnar and up saying that he has to give him credit for teaching a lesson on this one. Paul Heyman ended up saying that Brock Lesnar knows what will happen to him at Crown Jewel and that they had this discussion years ago. And Lesnar has met his match, Roman Reigns, the tribal chief. Paul Heyman ended up going on about how Reigns will walk out of Crown Jewel still the Universal Champion. And that's not just a prediction. he ended up saying, "That's not just a prediction, Brock. That's a spoiler. And you can believe that." Paul Heyman then tossed the mic, ended up dropping to his knees, ended up presenting the Universal Championship to Roman, and Reigns ended up raising the Universal Championship in the air, and he handed it over to Paul Heyman to carry it, and that was that. But overall, this was, okay segment here. So then, we had Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins ended up approaching Adam Pearce and Sonya Deville. Rollins ended up saying that he wants to know if Edge is going to be here tonight or not. Pearce then ended up telling Rollins that Edge was scheduled to be here until Rollins went to his house last week. So Rollins ended up saying that he will be waiting in the ring at the end of the show for Edge to answer him. And Rollins ended up saying that it will be on both Adam Pearce and Sonya Deville if Edge doesn't show up. He ended up saying that if he doesn't show up, if Edge doesn't show, their little show won't end well. Rollins ended up saying that if Adam Pearce and Sonya Deville do run into Edge before he does, he needs them to return something to him. So Rollins then ended up handing a photo to both Adam Pearce and Sonya Deville. And it was a photo of Edge and Beth Phoenix, his wife, kissing. That's what he took from their home last week. So Rollins then ended up walking off laughing. And that was that. And then we had Carmella versus Liv Morgan, Queen's Crown tournament match. This went 90 seconds, this match. It was awful. So yeah, Carmella ended up making her way out. And then Liv Morgan. So the bell ended up ringing. Carmella ended up stalling. She ended up going out to ringside to get her makeup crew to put the face mask on. I'm like, 2021 is the year of masks in WWE. Of course, Sheamus had a mask. You had Carmella wear a mask. So, and then you had Mandy Rose on NXT wear a mask. It's the year of masks in WWE this year. But Carmella ended up having her mask on. She ended up coming into the ring. Liv ended up taking her down. Carmella went right into the code of silence. And Liv ended up grabbing Carmella's mask as she was screaming, as Carmella was screaming. So Carmella ended up running into an elbow from Liv Morgan. Liv Morgan ended up dropping Carmella with some kicks. She went for the cover, which Carmella kicked out of too. Carmella then ended up trapping Liv in the ropes. Ended up hanging her neck up on the middle rope and delivered a super kick to Liv Morgan. And she went for the cover. There you go. Carmella ended up winning the match. Awful. Absolutely awful match this was. And this proves that WWE does not give a shit about the Queen's Crown tournament. It's already a fucking failure, this tournament. Already by what we saw tonight. We had Zelina Vega versus Toni Storm, 1 minute match. Carmella versus Liv Morgan, 90-second match. There, you can tell how WWE feels about this tournament. Like I said, the tournament is already a failure. And like I said earlier, give the tournament to Shayna Baszler. I really don't care if she wins it or not. If she wins it, fine. I don't care. Good on Shayna Baszler if she wins it. And then we saw Kayla Braxton. Kayla Braxton was backstage with Mace. And Kayla Braxton ended up asking Mace about coming over from Monday Night Raw in the draft and competing on Smackdown. Which, of course, they broke up Mace from T-Bar. T-Bar is on Monday Night Raw now. So Mace ended up saying to compete implies there is competition. And he didn't see anyone on his level when he looked in the locker room. Mace ended up saying that he's not coming to SmackDown to compete. He's coming to annihilate. Yeah, he's going to come to annihilate, and then he's going to catering. Yeah. Mace, I don't see WWE using Mace that well. This guy will have some matches, and then he'll be in catering. I don't see Mace going anywhere on SmackDown, in my opinion. Oh, and then we went to the Jokers. Yeah, you all know who I'm talking about. Corbin and Madcap Moss. We had a new edition of Happy Talk. Shit Talk. Great, we had another fucking Shit Talk episode on SmackDown. So, Corbin and Moss were in the ring. We had Moss end up doing another bad joke, which was fucking terrible. And then, of course, awful. Awful. And then Kevin Owens ended up coming out. I'm like, thank God, Kevin Owens, you saved us from more torture that would have came if you didn't come out with Corbin and Moss. So Moss ended up meeting Kevin Owens at ringside. Kevin Owens ended up beating him down. Owens came into the ring, attacked Corbin, and they started brawling. Kevin Owens ended up going for the stunner, but Moss ended up coming in to make the save on Corbin. Corbin and Moss ended up double teaming on Owens. Owens ended up going down as both Corbin and Moss were laughing. Moss ended up driving Owens into the mat with a inverted cutter. And of course, Corbin and Moss continue laughing. You know what I see? Corbin and Riddick Moss here. This is what I see in them as I watch them laugh. Both of them. Yeah, they're the Joker and Riddler from 60s Batman. That's Corbin and Moss when they're laughing in the ring hysterically. Might as well just call them that. The Joker and the Riddler. Corbin and Moss. Awful. This whole Corbin Moss shit is fucking terrible. Awful. Then we saw Adam Pearce and Sonya Deville backstage. Naomi ended up walking in. And she ended up saying, why is she not in the Queen's Crown tournament? Sonya Deville ended up saying to Naomi that she isn't worthy. She's not worthy of being a queen or even on the SmackDown roster. So Sonya Deville ended up saying that she's not done with Naomi just yet. Sonya Deville ended up saying that Naomi has a match next week. So Naomi was like, who is it against? And Sonya Deville was like, me. So Naomi ended up saying that it's on to Sonya Deville. So we're going to be in that next week. Naomi versus Sonya Deville. Sonya Deville returning to the ring after a year now. I think it's been a year since Sonya Deville has been in the ring. So Sonya Deville finally coming back into the ring next week. So that was that. And then we had Finn Balor versus Cesaro, first round match in the King of the Ring tournament. Very good match this was. Really enjoyed this match. We had Finn Balor making his way out. And then Cesaro ended up making his way out. So the match ended up started. Both Balor and Cesaro ended up locking up. Cesaro ended up taking Balor down, started working on his arm. Balor had a side headlock on Cesaro, and they went back and forth. Balor ended up running the ropes, and Cesaro ended up catching him with a tilt-a-whirl backbreaker. And he went for the cover, which Balor ended up kicking out too. Cesaro then whipped Balor into the turnbuckles, and he ended up taking Balor down, ended up going for a leg drop, and Cesaro went for the cover. Balor ended up kicking out at 2. Cesaro started delivering some chops and uppercuts to Balor in the corner. Balor ended up dodging a shot from Cesaro, and he ended up taking Cesaro down, nailed a stomp to Cesaro's chest. Balor then backdropped Cesaro over the top rope out to the floor, and Balor then ran the ropes, delivered a suicide dive. Cesaro ended up running in and ended up lifting him high for a uppercut, a European uppercut. So Cesaro ended up going for the cover. Balor ended up kicking out at 2. So Balor ended up fighting out of the corner as SmackDown came back from the commercial. Both Balor and Cesaro would trade some strikes. So Balor ended up kicking Cesaro over, started stomping away on him. More back and forth between them. So Cesaro's delivering some uppercuts to Balor. Balor ended up coming back, delivered a sling blade to Cesaro. So at the end of the match, we had Balor end up drop kicking Cesaro into the turnbuckles. Balor ended up going up to the top, and he nailed the coup de grace on Cesaro. Balor went for the cover. There you go. Balor ended up winning the match. He now advances to the second round of the King of the Ring tournament. So we have next week, it's going to be Balor versus Sami Zayn next Friday on SmackDown. So that should be a good match there. So then we saw Adam Pearce and Sonya Deville backstage, and they were with Becky Lynch. Becky was ranting about how Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns haven't changed the game like she has. Wow, what a joke! What a joke that Becky even said that. About how Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns haven't changed the game like she has. She beat Bianca Belair in 26 seconds. Thank you for making me laugh, Becky. Thank you. What a joke. So she ended up saying that SmackDown is her domain, and that Adam Pearce and Sonya Deville need to put some respect on her name. Becky wanted to say that she's not happy with Sasha and Bianca getting a shot at Crown Jewel. So she ended up going on about responding to everything asked of her and being the best. So Sonya Deville ended up saying that they know how good Becky Lynch is. She ended up saying that all Becky Lynch has to do is prove it to the rest of the world by beating both Sasha and Bianca at once and sign the contract. So Becky then signs the contract, ended up shoving the contract back, and that was that. So there you go. We're getting this triple threat at Crown Jewel. So then Seth Rollins ended up making his way out. He got into the ring. He was weighing on Edge. SmackDown went to commercial. Then when SmackDown came back from the commercial, we had matches announced for next week's SmackDown, which they're calling it a supersized SmackDown. What's going to be so supersized about it? So SmackDown is going to be on FS1 next week. We're going to have the semifinals of the King of the Ring and the Queen's Crown. So that's announced for SmackDown next week. It's going to have an appearance by Brock Lesnar. So, and then we had Seth Rollins in the ring. He ended up saying that the time has come. Rollins starts calling out Edge to the ring for Edge to answer his challenge. Rollins ended up saying that Edge can name the time and place, and even the stipulation. He was like, whatever you want, we can have the match in your living room so your wife and daughters can cheer you on. So Rollins was telling Edge to come on. So Rollins ended up laughing. He ended up saying that he knows what happened to that guy. You know, the rated R superstar and the ultimate opportunist. Rollins ended up saying that with one stomp at Madison Square Garden, and if he won't show up and answer the challenge, then he is going to take that as an admission that he is not Edge light, and that he is better than Edge is every way possible. Rollins ended up saying that Edge is not only disappointing him, but he's disappointing his fans, and more importantly, his family. Rollins ended up saying that he can't imagine what it's like for Edge's daughters to know that he's no longer an inspiration, and that he's a coward. He ended up saying that it must break their little hearts into tiny pieces. So Edge was shown on the screen. He was in the back. He ended up popping out of a car. Edge ended up marching through the backstage area. And Rollins was, of course, still in the ring. He was ready to fight Edge. So Rollins ended up going to ringside. He ended up bringing in the chair. Edge ended up rushing to the ring. He ended up hitting the spear to Rollins. Rollins ended up going right out to the floor. Edge ended up following Rollins. Edge ended up beating Rollins over the announce table. Started beating him down. Rollins had Pat McAfee's headset, the wires from Pat McAfee's headset, wrapped around him, and Edge ended up using it. Edge ended up bringing Rollins into the ring. He then stopped to break the bomb steel rod of the chair because Edge ended up taking the chair. He ended up breaking the rod underneath it. We saw Edge use this before. So Edge ended up bringing it into the ring. He tried to use the rod with the crossface on Rollins, but Rollins ended up elbowing Edge, and Rollins then retreated out to the floor. Edge then got on the mic as he was seething badly. He was very pissed off. Edge ended up taking the mic, and he was like, "I'll have a match with you. Hell in a cell." So we had Seth Rollins. He was shocked. He was like, "Oh my God, did I go too far with this?" And look what he got in return. Edge saying that he wants a Hell in a Cell match with Rollins. So there you go. That was that. That was how SmackDown went off the air. But looks like we're going to be getting that match at Crown Jewel in Saudi Arabia. So we're going to be getting that. It wasn't officially announced yet, but I know that's going to take place at Crown Jewel. So, but overall, SmackDown was an okay show tonight. Moving on to AEW Rampage, which this was taped from the Liacouras Center in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. We saw CM Punk versus Daniel Garcia. The AEW World Tag Team titles were on the line. The Lucha Brothers defended the titles against the Acclaimed, Anthony Bowens and Max Caster. Jade Cargill was also in action, where she ended up taking on Sky Blue. And the main event, we had a Philly street fight, and the FTW Championship was on the line. Ricky Starks defended the title against Brian Cage. Of course, Starks and Brian Cage are in this feud. But overall, AEW Rampage was an enjoyable show tonight. So Rampage opened up with Mark Henry. Mark Henry was interviewing both CM Punk and Daniel Garcia. 2.0, of course, was with Daniel Garcia. Punk ended up saying that although Daniel Garcia and 2.0 jumped him in Chicago, he plans to end it right here in Philly. So then we got the match. CM Punk versus Daniel Garcia. Daniel Garcia, of course, came out along with 2.0. And this was a good match here. CM Punk has been doing very well since coming to AEW. He's been on a roll. He has not lost a single match since he has arrived in AEW, since he came to AEW. So, but the match started off with Punk end up locking in a stare towards Daniel Garcia as he stepped into the ring. So we had both Punk and Daniel Garcia use a lockup. Punk ended up driving Daniel Garcia into the mat. So we had Punk end up slowing the match. He locked in a heel hook, which Daniel Garcia ended up escaping out of because he grabbed the bottom rope. Daniel Garcia then ended up driving Punk into the corner and delivered a chop to Punk. Punk ended up returning the favor and delivered a slap to Daniel Garcia, which he followed that off with a body slam. So we had Punk end up taking a back elbow from Daniel Garcia. Punk was looking to go for the GTS, but 2.0 got involved, and they ended up pulling Daniel Garcia out of the ring. 2.0 ended up slamming Punk's leg into the ring post, and then it went to picture-in-picture. So we saw Daniel Garcia end up connecting a headbutt while he locked Punk's leg in. So Daniel Garcia ended up hooking Punk's leg, and Punk ended up firing back with some shots. Daniel Garcia then ended up eating a right hand from Punk. Garcia ended up chop blocking Punk back down on the canvas. So Garcia ended up missing a drop kick in the corner. Punk delivered a rising knee strike to Daniel Garcia. Punk ended up hitting a chop at Garcia and then a roundhouse kick. So Punk ended up going for the cover. Daniel Garcia ended up kicking out. So Punk ended up delivering a neck breaker and a knee strike in the corner to Garcia. Garcia came back and delivered a slam to Punk, which he went for the cover, which Punk ended up kicking out too. So at the end of the match, we had Punk end up locking in the Anaconda Vice on Daniel Garcia, and Garcia end up tapping out. So there you go. CM Punk end up winning the match. Punk has been undefeated so far in AEW. But overall, good match it was. Punk and Daniel Garcia. Daniel Garcia, it could show that he can wrestle. From what we saw in this match, Daniel Garcia can wrestle. What we saw with him and Punk tonight in this match. So then we went backstage and we saw Tony Schiavone. Tony Schiavone was in with Lio Rush, Dante Martin, and Matt Sydal. Matt Sydal ended up saying that he isn't on board with Lio Rush working with Dante Martin. So Lio Rush then ended up proposing a match to Matt Sydal. So Lio Rush was like, oh, how about you have a match next week on Rampage? How about you face CM Punk? So Matt Sydal was okay with that. And that match will take place next week on Rampage. But we all know that CM Punk is going to win that match either way. And then we had the AEW World Tag Team titles on the line. The Lucha Brothers defended the titles against the Acclaimed, Anthony Bowens and Max Caster. Of course, the Lucha Brothers came out along with Alex Abrahantes. This was a decent match here. We had the Acclaimed end up fighting the Lucha Brothers as they made their way toward the ring. Phoenix ended up shoving Anthony Bowens off with a jawbreaker. Both Penta and Phoenix delivered double super kicks to the Acclaimed. Penta ended up missing Max Caster, and Caster ended up sending Penta out to the mat with a suplex. So Caster ended up going for the cover, and Penta ended up kicking out. So the Acclaim ended up getting offense in the match, and Bowens ended up locking Penta in for a pin, and Penta ended up kicking out. Penta then delivered the DDT to Max Caster. Penta then made the tag to Phoenix. Anthony Bowens ate a big boot from Phoenix, and Phoenix ended up getting caught, and he quickly recovered to send the Acclaim back on the mat with a double cutter. So at the end of the match, we had the Lucha Brothers deliver a pile driver, and there you go. The Lucha Brothers end up winning the match, retaining the AEW World Tag Team titles. But overall, it was a decent match. So we saw the Casino Ladder match, which was shown on Dynamite this Wednesday, which I did watch that match. Very good ladder match that was. You had Hangman Page returning. He was the Joker, which I'm like, the Joker in my opinion, I thought it was going to be MJF, but of course it was Hangman Page, and he won the match, and he will face Kenny Omega for a future shot at the AEW World Championship. So that's going to be awesome there. Hangman Page versus Omega, AEW World Championship on the line. That's going to be cool to see. So that possibly won't happen until Full Gear. I think we're going to get that match at Full Gear. So then we had Jade Cargill versus Sky Blue. This was a squash match. Jade Cargill ended up winning the match, delivered a face buster to Sky Blue, and that was that. Jade Cargill ended up winning. Post-match, Cargill was attacking Sky Blue. Thunder Rosa then ran out. She ran out and with a steel chair in hand, and Cargill ended up escaping out of the ring, retreated up the ramp. Wanted nothing to do with Thunder Rosa. So that was that. The overall squash match with Cargill and Sky Blue. Then they went over what we're going to see next week on Rampage. Of course, it's going to be Matt Sydal versus CM Punk. Ruby Soho is going to be facing the Bunny. Of course, Ruby Soho is going to win that match. We're going to have the Inner Circle versus Ethan Page, Scorpio Sky, and Junior Dos Santos of Dan Lambert's American Top Team. So we're going to be getting those three matches next week on Rampage. And then we're going to have a Saturday Night Dynamite, which is next week, because this Wednesday Dynamite won't be on because of NHL games. So it's going to take place on Saturday. So for Saturday's Dynamite, we're going to have Dante Martin versus Malachi Black. Of course, Malachi Black's going to win it. Going to keep that that streak going. We're going to have Lucha Brothers versus Andrade El Idolo. So we're going to be having that. Bryan Danielson versus Bobby Fish. That's going to be a good match there. So those are the matches that were announced for next week's Dynamite, which is going to be on Saturday night. And then we had the main event. The Philly Street Fight. FTW Championship on the line. Ricky Starks defended the title against Brian Cage. So this was a very good match here. This was an entertaining match here. So Brian Cage ended up getting the early advantage in the match. He was ragdolling on Ricky Starks. Cage ended up slamming a chair right into Starks' spine. Cage ended up throwing Starks into the crowd while they were outside. So Brian Cage ended up railing Starks straight into the apron. And we had Starks end up using a pull cue to keep Cage down. He ended up planning a tornado DDT on Cage. So Starks ended up delivering a leg drop on Cage. He went for the cover. Cage ended up kicking out. Starks then ate a thrust kick from Cage. Cage ended up smashing a trash can on top of Ricky Starks' head. And he dumped Starks onto the trash can, went for the cover. Starks ended up kicking out too. And Hook ended up running down. He had the FTW Championship in hand, and Cage ended up taking Hook out. Hobbs ended up coming in. Cage ended up sending Hobbs to the outside. So Cage ended up turning around. He got speared by Ricky Starks. So Starks ended up going for the cover. Cage ended up kicking out. Cage then ended up sending Starks straight into a chair that was set up in the corner. Cage ended up turning Starks inside out with a lariat. Hobbs then ended up running to save Starks. And we had Hobbs and Hook. Hook ended up low blowing Brian Cage. And Starks ended up pinning Brian Cage. And there you go. Ricky Starks ended up winning the match, retaining the FTW Championship. And that was how Rampage went off the air. But overall, this was an enjoyable Philly street fight. You know, Ricky Starks was busted open. He was bleeding. So, but overall, enjoyable, good match it was. And Rampage was an enjoyable show tonight. So, but anyways, that's it for my review of SmackDown and AEW Rampage. Thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed this review. Definitely give the video a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, and next video will be a unboxing. So be on the lookout for that. So it'll probably be up tomorrow. So until that video, I'll see you all later.